Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode. Today we're talking about careers, jobs. What do you want to do? Essentially, when you turn 13 or 14, people start asking you the lovely question. So what do you want to do? So what do you want to do, Dan? What do you want to do, Sarah? What do you want to do, Bill, Jacob, Felicia, Rachel? What's the big plan? What do you want to do from the age of 18 till 65? And you're 15 and you're like, I just kind of want to play with my toys and go on the monkey bars. I don't know. And I can't even drive yet. And you're asking me what I want to do for a job? So you start going through high school and people keep asking you and you're like, I still don't know what I want to do. I don't know if college is the way, if university is the way, if trades is the way, if I want to go into school at all. Maybe I want to go straight into a job. I don't even know the prerequisites for the thing that I don't know what to do. Because look, if you don't know what to do, it's like, well, what do I take, right? People tell you, you should approach life with a plan. You should know what to do and then follow the path that is most appropriate to that destination. You go, well, I don't know where I'm going. Folks, we're here to talk about that today. I took a counseling course. It was a career counseling course at the University of British Columbia, and it introduced me to some theories, to some different styles of thinking that I want to share with you today as you think about different ideas in relation to career, how to pick a career, a job, what to do. Should it be something that you're passionate about? Should it be something that you just find it okay with? Who should do what job, and what should we do? How much risk should we take? Now, before getting into the theories, I want to start off by talking about this. Do you believe a person should try to make their passion their full-time job? Is that something that we should strive towards? Why or why not? In one sense, you might say, Daniel, this is a great idea. You should definitely make your passion your full-time job because then you'll never work a day in your life, right? Every day is fun. If you love skating and you become a skating instructor, bada boom, bada bing, life is great now, right? Every moment will be amazing. The other side of the room says, no, Daniel, that's the last thing you want to do. If you make your passion into your job, it won't be fun anymore. Right? Because, you know, how many YouTubers have you heard when they say, look, we started off, it was fun, we did whatever we wanted to, then we signed with a big company, it became a job, there was a quota of how many videos we had to make, there was a designer, there was a makeup person, camera person, it became so corporate and it lost its beauty along the way. Right? It wasn't just I'm doing this for fun, it's I'm doing this because I have to pay bills. And it added this stress that wasn't there beforehand. So maybe I should have kept my passion far away. What do you folks think? Look, this is an idea that from my friends, I've heard both sides of arguments. I've heard both sides of ideas. Some of them say it is a good idea. Some of them say it isn't a good idea. Here's my own opinion on it, and feel free to disagree. If you are going to allocate so much of your life to something, like it's a crazy amount of time, folks. If we think about 8 hours a day, that's a lot. That's 40 hours a week, all right? That's 80 hours every 2 weeks. 80 hours every 2 weeks is a lot of time, my friends. Imagine you're doing something that you absolutely hate, or that you find extremely boring or extremely challenging. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound very pleasant. Because if it's too boring, you don't want to do it. And if you feel like it's way out of your reach to do, skill-wise, you don't want to do it. It's that sweet spot in the middle where you're interested and the challenge is in direct proportion to your abilities, to your skills, to the knowledge that you possess. It's the classic idea of, you take an artist, you take someone who's super creative and you put them in a job where they don't have to use any creativity. They don't have any autonomy in the matter. You just kind of fall through the structure. Or you take someone who has no people skills, is not interested in talking to people at all, and you put them as a receptionist. And you put them as a nurse. You make him work in a senior home where he's talking to seniors all day. How do you think that's going to go? What happens when you put Cristiano Ronaldo in a different position? You'll put people in their correct positions and they will flourish. So you're sitting there and you're going, well, Daniel, that's all fun and nice. And yeah, that sounds super cool. I still have no idea what I want to do. Like, the amount of people I've talked to in university, in college, they're like, dude, I'm 2 years into this English degree. I don't actually know why I'm studying English. I don't know what I'm going to do with this degree. I'm kind of going with the flow. And it's a lot of people, folks. Now, here's something that hopefully it makes you feel a little bit better. It's normal to feel this way. Like the theories in career counseling, most of them allocate some time to the exploration phase. It's not like you just wake up one day and you know what to do. That's rare. What really happens is you start to explore different things. You start to explore different ideas. Oh, your dad's friend is a designer for a TV show. Like, what does that mean? He does like the setup design. So he talks about like what couch should be where and where the light should be in direct proportion to this carpet and that chair and where the people should stand for the scene before the director shows up. Now you're like, oh, I never thought about that. A set designer for a TV show. Like that was never something that was proposed to me. My parents always talked about, you know, X, Y, and Z, but set designer wasn't one of them. So a big way that we explore these ideas is through movies, is through TV shows, is by our parents, and it's by the people around us. Right? If there's so many jobs that you don't even know exist, and it's not your fault because you don't have anyone around you who's working in those jobs. Could be working in an oil rig, could be working in a sand mine, it could be being a notary public, it could be an accountant, it could be a certain guy working in IT. And if you don't know that they exist, you've got no idea about the job environment, you've got no idea about how much money they're making, what a regular day looks like for them. Now the good thing about YouTube is you can do a day in the life of whatever, a lawyer, an accountant, a belly dancer, and you can get a little bit of an idea, oh, this is what this looks like. Look, regardless, going back to this career counseling course that I took at UBC, one of the pillars and one of the themes that kept coming up, and I was so extremely happy to see this, was these different things that we're interested in. So to make it simple, there are 3 different interests right now in career counseling that you categorize people in. And yes, my friends, there is overlap. But generally speaking, some people are very interested in things. They're very interested in things. What do I mean by things? I mean objects, not living objects. So this might include, you think about people going to becoming mechanics or engineers, or people who work on cars, people who work in IT, people who work with computers, with algorithms, with coding. Think about any trades job. Think about oil rigs. Think about being up on those cranes. Think about plumbing. So those are things. I'm interested in structures and in literal things I can have my hands on, okay? Then you have people who are interested in ideas. Now, ideas is really interesting. It's kind of abstract. Ideas is like, look, you would love to just sit around a room and just talk or just think. So like a scientist is someone who would be very interested in ideas. What are different ideas that we could pursue? What are different ideas that we could test and measure, and how would we measure in the control blah 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 and the experimental blah blah and the intervention is this. Entrepreneurs are people who could be very interested in ideas. They want to create a service, something that doesn't exist, and you're just thinking, what do we have, what don't we have, what problem can we solve? So there's people who are interested in things, think very handsy, think trades. There are people who are interested in ideas, think people who just sit there like a philosopher, like a scientist, like even an entrepreneur. You're thinking about these abstract things that you can't really touch. And then finally, you've got people who are interested in people. And this, essentially, I want you to think about a nurse. I want you to think about a therapist. I want you to think about people who work in a senior home, a receptionist. So any job where you're constantly talking to people, where you're working in a group, you're in a teamwork environment, you guys all get together and you do your part, and then Bill plays off of the part that you finished, and then Jane plays off of the part that Bill finished. So it's very people oriented. You're constantly greeting people. Now, one thing that I have noticed is, and I'm curious as to what you've noticed, is in relation to jobs that are very people focused, that are very interested in people, I see women dominate that a lot. In my own psychology classes, which again, you're focusing on people, that's your interest, the majority are female. You go to therapy, the majority are female. You look at, again, like preschool teachers, the majority are female. Although in high school I've had both. I've had male and female, I would say 50-50. But definitely younger kindergarten, they were female. Senior homes, generally female. Receptionist, generally a good-looking female. And then with things, in my own anecdotal world, I've generally seen them be more men. The plumber was a man. The dude setting up the bricks was a man. The construction guys out there, if there were 10 of them, 9 of them were men. So that's an observation I've made, and I'm curious if you've seen anything like that or similar to that. So we recognize there's a bunch of these different ideas. Now you're sitting there going, okay, Dan, well, how do I know what I like? And look, you've got to have some idea. And one of the ways that we can do this is we can look at your past. In your history, what have you done? What has been fun? And you're like, Dan, I'm 20 years old listening to this. In my past, I was eating McDonald's and watching cartoons. Like, I don't have much experience to go off of, right? It's like, fair enough. This is the perfect place where it comes to exploring. It's one of those things where I want to give you a lot of information, and I don't want you to sign up for a course that you don't like. I don't want you to commit to something that won't be fun for you. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, a lot of it is experiential learning. Do you folks know what that means? Experiential learning? It means you learn through experiencing. So one of the best things you could do, according to the theories in career counseling, is take a course in one of those things. Better yet, take a course in all of them. Take a course, for example, it could be psychology, it could be nursing, it could be medicine, something related to people, where you're talking about people, how people function, the way people interact. Take a course, something trades related, how a car works, whatever. Different tools, the basics of construction, like demolition, whatever you want to do. Take another course in just ideas, scientific research, data, analysis, sitting there thinking, pondering. So this will give you a good example of, like, do I enjoy doing this? And then, only based off experience, in my opinion, then can you tell, oh, I'm someone who I do not enjoy talking to people whatsoever. Put me in a room by myself with a computer. I'm very good at typing away. My typing speed is very quick. I'll get the job done remote. I don't want to see anybody. Other people, no, are the complete opposite. Put me in a room by myself, I'll start crying. Put me in a big environment. I want to see people. I want to interact. I want to be a part of a team. I want to lead a team. I want to talk to people. I don't want to work by myself. So immediately having those things, that's going to help discriminate the pool of things that you want to do, right? So that's a really, really big one. Another thing, my friends, that I would urge you to pay attention to in the past is whenever you've been in a state of flow, right? I know earlier we were talking about kind of passion. Should you make passion your job, or should you keep it separate? And if there are people listening to this who are going, well, look, I don't even know what my passion is. Like, sure, I kind of like NBA, or I kind of like playing golf, but is that really my passion, or is that just an interest? When you think about a time that you were in a state of flow, meaning you were doing something, and you were interested in it, and the challenge it was giving you was in direct proportion to the skill or the knowledge that you were presenting, so much so that time was flying by. If you watch an NBA game, or whatever thing that interests you, and time flies by, folks, don't forget that thing that happened in time. When we enjoy something, it flies by. When we don't enjoy something, it feels like it's taken forever. I've been meaning to tell my professor about this. The professors that I didn't like, the classes that I didn't like, felt like they would drag on forever. The classes that I actually enjoyed, that I wanted time to slow down, it was like it sped up. So it was the complete opposite. So my recommendation to you is think about those moments in life where you've done something. You were out with a friend, you were traveling, you were writing, and then you got into a state of flow, and think about why that is. Like, let's say you were sitting there writing an essay about, I don't know, why society is systemically racist. And then you sit there and you go, whoa, like, that flew by. I've been doing this for an hour, and I didn't even notice. That was a lot of fun. I'm genuinely interested. I want to talk to a friend about the things that I wrote. Think about why. Is it the writing? Is it the topic? What is there for you that interests you, that captivates your attention? You could be watching a sports game. Be going to like a hot yoga class. Whatever interesting, cool hobby you might have. It might be doing magic tricks. It might be juggling. It might be art. It might be painting. So pay attention to these things and then you go, all right, well, look, I'm interested in art. What are all of the occupations, all of the jobs that are art related? What does that mean? Like being like an art critic. What the heck is that? How about having my artwork in a museum, or like in an art gallery? What do I have to do to put my art in an art gallery? What are the steps to doing it? What are the different ways of making art? How can I get paid to make art? What are the different styles of art? So all of a sudden, now you've just opened up a door to do some exploration, to try different things. And the moment your eyes open, you become more aware, you're going to ask better questions. And better questions, my dear friends, lead to better answers. So, we recognize that we have passions. We recognize that a job is going to take up a lot of our time. We know that if we're in a state of flow, it means we're having a good time. It means we don't want to let something escape. So, to give you a personal example, whenever I'm exercising, not whenever, a lot of the time, I know if the exercise went well. When I look at the clock and I'm like, holy smokes, it's been an hour, and I haven't even noticed. As opposed to some days, rarely when I work out and I'm not in the mood, it's like time's dragging by. And I've always thought to myself, I'd be interested in something exercise related as a career, as a job, even as a hobby. Like, this is something that I could see myself doing and I wouldn't hate it. Like, there's some people that really dislike exercise, but for myself, it's something, especially depending on the certain types of exercise, if I do, I'm like, I could do this for a long time. And then you start thinking, well, what jobs include all this exercise? And then you start, well, what about a personal trainer? What about a coach? What about a blah, blah, blah? You're interested in food. How about a nutritionist? How about a chef? How about working in a restaurant? So then you start playing off these ideas. So you think to yourself, am I interested in people, in things, or in ideas? You think to yourself, what do I think about making my passion my full-time job? And if you don't have a passion, you think, when are times that I've engaged in this state of flow? Now, the last kind of thing I want to leave for you folks is this gentleman by the name of Donald Super. So that's Donald, D-O-N-A-L-D, space Super, exactly how you think it is. And Donald Super's theory on kind of careers and counseling is something that really resonated with my own kind of hypotheses of career counseling years earlier when I was a young man. So what Mr. or Dr. Super thinks is this: your career, before you think about a career, and this is so cool because these are certain ideas that I had when I was younger. Before you think about a career, you have to develop a sense of self. And when you develop a sense of self, finding a career, becomes a lot easier. Now here's the caveat, ready? Your sense of self changes across time. Thus, this will directly influence your career. For example, if you're a young person, 20, 25, you might think a career where you can travel, it's the best thing in the world. Why? It's fun, you want to see the world, you haven't seen many other countries, you haven't seen many other continents, it's just you, nobody depends on you, you're a lone wolf, traveling is super fun, plus they start paying for your hotels and stuff, sign me up. All of a sudden you're 25, you're doing this and that. Now you hit 35, and you're sitting there and you're going, look, I love traveling, but I'd like to settle down somewhere, I'd like to have a family, and in order to do that, it's going to be very tricky with me always moving around, so maybe I should settle somewhere. So now, your different self-concept influences the decisions that you make in relation to your career. Folks, the little quote for this podcast is called The Journey to Self-Awareness. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. And essentially what it means is your journey to becoming self-aware. But the tricky thing is that the more self-aware you become, you realize that you're changing every day. From today to tomorrow, it's not going to be as drastic as from today compared to 5 or 10 years from now. But you're still changing. And as you change, your values slightly change, your interests slightly change, and your priorities in life change. And this is the big thing that I really want to touch on. What Super said, he goes, look, as we get older, the amount of time that we allocate to certain activities will change. And this will directly influence the career that we want to have. So after you've thought about, do I want to make my passion my hobby? When am I in a state of flow? Am I interested in people, things, or ideas? Then you start looking and you go, okay, well, how much time do I want to allocate to a certain idea? Now, before I get going, I want to read you this. This is a bit of a chart explaining Super's idea of different stages in life, and then I want to talk to you about something. So, Super goes, look, up until the age of about 14, kids are developing a self-concept, which means a self-awareness. Who am I? What are my values? What do I find fun? What do I dislike? What are my attitudes? When you're 15 to 24, he says you're in the exploration phase. You're trying different things. You pick an elective. You pick up a class. You take a salsa class. You make choices to try different things to see, do I like this? Do I not like this? If you've never had chocolate, how do you know if you're going to like it or not, right? You got to have a bite. It's experiential learning. From about 25 to the age of 44, he talks about the establishment phase. So the establishment phase is like, okay, you've entered this career. Now you're building skills that are going to help you in said career. So you became an accountant and you realize, whoa, I got to get really good at Excel and I got to get really good at math. So on top of the schooling that you did, you're going to dedicate extra hours to get better at your thing. So that's establishment. Maintenance is between the ages of 45 and 64, which is like, I just want to build on it. So if I'm like a junior accountant, I want to become a senior accountant. If I'm the youngest belly dancer there, I want to work my way up into like the hierarchy of belly dancing and make it to the top of the organization. Whatever. Until eventually we have the decline after 65 years old, which is saying, look, I want to reduce my output now. I'm not getting as much back. Making a certain amount of money isn't that much important to me, or so super believed. He goes, like, after 65, making a crazy amount of money isn't the same as making that money when you're 20, 30, or even 40 years old. The first thing I want to point out is that it's not like a linear thing. It's not like you move through it once and that's it. No, man, a lot of people try different things. They end up in a career. They don't like the career. They go to a career counselor. They talk. They leave that career. They go to a different one. But Super's idea, his theory, was really congruent with mine in that he said, look, it depends on your self-concept. One of the coolest things I've ever said is, someone told me, Daniel, I don't know what to do. And I said, you don't know what to do because you don't know who you are. And my own belief was, if you know who you were, if you knew what your interests were to a T, and if you knew what you loved doing, you would go do that. Or if you knew how much risks you were comfortable in taking, you would take those risks to pursue a career even though it's not safe. Or vice versa. You would say, look, I know I want to do this, but it's not me. I'm not a risk taker. I wouldn't be able to sleep well at night if I pursued the career of whatever, acting or being a pro athlete. So even though I love that, I want to go this way, and I'll keep that as a hobby. Right? Where does that come from? It comes from self-awareness. So Super goes, look, you got to become self-aware. You got to know what you want. You got to know which way you're going. You have to have an aim. Otherwise, you don't know where to go. And secondly, he goes, pay attention to the amount of time you would allocate to your career. Another very easy example is, you might be a 20-year-old who wants to work 60, 70 hours a week. You've listened to a lot of Gary Vee. You want to put the time in. You want to be an amazing employee. All of a sudden, you get 30, 35, 40. You go, look, I'm not that guy anymore. I don't need that much money. I thought I needed the bigger things in life, the bigger house, the bigger car. I don't. I'm a minimalist. I don't want to live in this expensive city either. I want to move to a different city. I don't need to make that much money. So then you sit there and you think, how much time am I willing to allocate to a job? If it's 8 hours a day, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, fair enough. Some people, it's, look, I want to have my own hours. Maybe I want to work from 7 till 7 on Monday, take Tuesdays and Wednesdays off, and then work whatever different hours Thursdays and Fridays. There are jobs. There's contracting jobs you could do. You only want to work from home. There's remote working. There's a lot of different options. So the problem is just we're not aware of these options, right? That's why self-awareness is key. We become aware of ourselves, and then we can start looking around us, our family, our friends. What's this person doing? What's that person doing? Interesting. How did you get into that? In order to do that, what did you have to do? There's a question I thought of. What do you need to do in order to do the things that you want to do? Like, you want to become a plumber. What does that mean? Like, what kind of prerequisites do you need? What kind of experience and schooling do you need to become a plumber? How long does it take time-wise, and how much money does it take? A question that my sociologist prof asked years ago, I was in my first year of UVic, he says something like, point to one job, one prestigious job that is dominated by women. And the kind of thing that he was implying here was like, look, we live in this patriarchy, this oppressive society where women aren't allowed to get to the top. If you look at, for example, medical doctors, they're mostly men. If you look at lawyers, they're mostly men. Engineers, they're mostly men. And one of the reasons immediately I knew that I wasn't interested in sociology as much as psychology was you totally strip the individual away of any choices. So the thought there was like, oh, we have more men than women who are lawyers, who are doctors, who are engineers. I don't actually know about this, but this was the things he was saying. This was years ago in class. We have more men that are lawyers, doctors, and engineers than we are women. And he wouldn't tell you why that is, but he kind of implied, look, we're living in an oppressive society, this and that. And the only thing that I questioned was like, well, look, if there's extra barriers because of whatever discrimination, sexism, racism, you know, that's terrible and those should be addressed. But what if an individual doesn't want to do that job? Because I'm sitting there and going, look, I don't know many people who want to work 60, 70 hours. I don't know many people who are okay with working 12-hour shifts a day. I certainly wouldn't want to work a 12-hour shift. That doesn't mean you can't or you shouldn't. So I remember the way that he posed the question was like, you know, they're being held back. Like maybe some are being held back, but can we at least entertain the idea that someone's sitting there going, no, I don't want to work 70 hours a week. No, I'm not interested in doing a 12-hour shift. And look, there's a lot of women who do. 2 thumbs up for you. But what's wrong with saying, look, I don't want to allocate that much time to a job like that. I'd rather invest it in my hobbies. I'd rather invest it into my family. You know, and that's not specific to women. It's for men as well. But I remember that specifically being like, oh man, like sociology totally overlooks the individual. And it goes, you do this because this is what society has told you to do. Rather than, well, look, in that idea, then we're these passive robots that don't have any responsibility, then we don't have choice. I always thought it was more appropriate to think about it in moderation. We have our societal influences, but we also have a little bit of choice in the matter, you know? Yes, some people have got barriers. It's harder to do certain things, or maybe it's easier to do certain things, especially if your parents are already involved, depending on socioeconomic status. Absolutely, without a doubt, these all influence the situation. But to say we have no choice in the matter, personally, in my opinion, feel free to disagree, I think that's a bit extreme, to say no choice at all. So I want you to keep this in mind. How much time do you feel comfortable allocating to your job? If it's 40 hours a week, fair enough. If your dream is to work part-time and your partner makes enough money that you guys can live together while you're working 2-3 days a week, fair enough, dude. Just keep that in the back of your mind and think about jobs that are part-time. If you just want to be a stay-at-home dad or a stay-at-home mom, maybe that's an option. Maybe you do want to go to law school. Maybe you do want to do these jobs where you constantly have to move to different places. So it's important to recognize who we are, what we're looking for, and how much time do we feel comfortable allocating to this thing. And it's totally normal, not only normal, it's expected that you're going to have a lot of time in your 20s. All of a sudden, when you're 40, it's natural. You don't want to take as many risks. When you're getting older, you kind of want to settle somewhere. That's why you hear people who are 50, 55 going, look, I'm just going to wait here till retirement. I don't have it in me to go start from, you know, level 1 again in a different job. But it's totally normal. Or vice versa, dude. You're 20, 25, you're like, I don't want to work. Screw the man. You know, I'm not doing anything for anybody. I'm not working more than 10 hours a week. All of a sudden, you turn 30, you're like, all right, I want to make some money. You go down a different path. You start working a lot. You start making a lot of money. So be open to it. Recognize there is an exploration phase. Recognize that we have different interests. And in my own opinion, if we go into a job that is more congruent with us, that is more aligning with our interests, it'll make life a lot easier for you. It'll make getting up every day a lot easier for you. It'll still have its hardships, but hopefully you won't hate your job. And because your job is taking up so much of your time to pay for bills, to pay for hobbies, to pay for your phone, you know, it's not something you can just stop doing unless you're born into a rich family. In that case, forget everything I've just said and go treat yourself to something nice. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care of yourselves and stay safe. Bye-bye.